First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to First City Focus. I'm your host, Allison Bowers. On this episode, we'll learn about a collaboration between the Knox County Health Department and Indiana University that is aiming to better understand food scarcity in Knox County. The Knox County Community Learning Kitchen has been educating the community on healthy eating for its second year now. We'll take a look at some highlights. And if you think invasive plants don't affect you, you might want to think again. We'll learn more about which species to avoid. We'll have these stories and more right now on First City Focus. What do you think of when you hear the words food insecurity? Knox County Health Department Community Health Nurse Susan Yoakum is here today to talk about local food shortages. Thanks for joining me today, Susan.
Thanks for having me.
So recently there was a study done by the IU O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs in conjunction with the Knox County Health Department. How did that start?
Last year, when I had first started with the health department, I attended the IU Rural Conference and sat in on a breakout session with Dr. James Farmer, and it highlighted the Sustaining Hoosier Community Program through IU, focusing on food security and insecurity in another community. And it just highlighted all of the resources that IU had to offer. So after the conference, I sought out a few of the contacts that I had made there, and we did a couple Zoom calls with some of the staff with the School for Rural Engagement. And they set us up with Dr. Farmer's class, and we kind of landed on our food pantries within Knox County. I've been in healthcare for a long time and have seen that we do have a lot of pantries available, but sometimes the accessibility is not really great. Sometimes there's limited staffing, limited resources, selection, and I had thought that if IU could come in and help with their resources to maybe help us get a little bit more organized and collaborate, that we might be able to provide a little bit deeper and better system within our county.
Right, so they came in, and how long was that study they did?
So I believe they started in January with this semester. It's a group of his master leveled students, and we had a couple Zoom call meetings with them, and then they set about doing this collaborative with our food pantries. They started with an assessment by contacting our local food pantries with questionnaires, finding out some of their challenges, what they offer, things that they might need, and from that assessment, then they identified some other ways that they might recommend to us to help with this project.
Right, and so what were some of their major findings? I know the final report's not out yet,
right.
But what did they find?
We should get the final report in a couple weeks. They did find that we are fortunate that we have a large amount of pantries. We do cover most of our county, but they did find that down in the Decker area and in the southwest part of our county, there is a higher rate of poverty level individuals, those that are getting WIC and SNAP and some of the other things that are offering through the state and through our local community. So they identified Vincennes and Decker and I believe Widener Township as areas that we might be able to add a little bit more to help the individuals in those areas.
Right, and I think that was available to watch for the
Right.
public, correct? Their findings. If someone wants to watch that now, where is that? Where can they watch that?
So I do have that, the session that they held last week, through a link, and if you'd like to email me, I'd be happy to send that to you. I invited a lot of community members, and many were able to attend that day for the final project, but I do have that entire, the presentation that they offered, and they can just, if anyone's interested in watching it, they can email me, and I'd be happy to send that to them, especially anybody that I might not have reached that didn't get the opportunity to attend, because we're hoping to take some of their recommendations and suggestions and move forward with this.
Right. How did our access to food pantries compare to other areas in Indiana?
Honestly, I'm not clear on that. I don't know how they compared us. They just basically told us about the percentage of, they looked into the data and the percentage of our poverty level, the percentage of people that might have a language barrier, transportation barrier, some of those kinds of things.
Right.
But they did make several comments about that they were surprised at the amount of opportunities that we do have,
right.
Although they did identify some barriers like weekends and evening hours
right.
for the public.
Right, and I know Knox County covers such a large area,
right.
so many of the, like you mentioned, Widener Township and Decker, the outer reaching edges, it's up to churches and
right.
volunteer groups in those areas to set up blessing boxes and things like that. But even then, transportation still remains
sure.
An issue, because I know the trolley in Vincennes, I think that has helped probably, people in town access the food pantries better. But like you said, the studies sometimes found maybe they weren't open on the weekends, or maybe they weren't open on evenings. So if they were working and trying to get there, but so many of these are just volunteer based,
right.
So that's what makes it so
and
hard.
And it's an aging volunteer base. They did
right.
find that the average age of the volunteers at our food pantries is around 50. And so they did identify some opportunities where we might potentially get some younger people in that might be able to identify or might be able to offer some of that evening or weekend, looking at maybe mobile units that might be able to go into these more remote areas, or looking at providing some of these churches or local community centers with more resources.
Right, and I think so many of it, like you said, it has to be volunteer based, and it has to come from the community, just because so many of, especially federal grants, state grants, are getting cut, but food costs are certainly not going down. So the people who were needing food before are still going to be needing food, and so it's just figuring out better ways to give them access to that food, right? And I know, this has nothing to do with the health department, but Sunbucks has been cut back. Indiana decided not to participate in this year, which was basically extra money for kids during the school year or during the summer to access food. When there's not enough food in a community, or there's not enough access to food in a community, what effects from the health department point of view do you guys see?
So we've all heard about all the cuts everywhere, and that is a huge concern, especially for the summer months. Our students do depend a lot on the breakfast and the lunches that are served, and I know that some of the other food programs are still going to go on, but those extra Sunbucks, I think that we'll see an increase of people needing these extras through food pantries and food banks, and we need to be able to be ready for that and to address that. Good nutrition across the board is the key to a healthy community. We at the health department, we do offer some produce vouchers that we provide to some local organizations like FHC and some of the trustees and through our immunization clinic, and they do offer some free fruits and vegetables at our farmers markets in a couple locations within the community. In order to help, we anticipate that to be on the rise as well this summer, but if we don't keep our kids and our elderly healthy, we're going to look at more chronic disease and more emergency room visits, that kind of thing.
Right, and I know you guys have been working more to educate the public and to educate the youth on healthy eating. What are some events that you guys have done lately?
Well, we do have Fit Kids that goes into the schools and talks a little bit about My Plate and healthy nutrition, as well as the importance of activity. I've done some things in the summer at some of the different summer camps and such. We joined with 1972 a while back for for National Nutrition Month to try to get kids involved. At Ag Day, we planted seeds and gave out some information about healthy eating and trying to get kids interested so that they can potentially influence their parents on, instead of getting the colorful cereals, we get the colorful vegetables.
Right, and those kids grow up to be adults.
Sure.
So then we hope, starting with the youth, then we can maybe start to change some of these
chronic
shifts.
disease is starting younger and younger, so if we can start alleviating a little of that in our younger population, hopefully that'll help in the future.
Right. So was there anything specifically that this study, kind of looping back around to the study, just to finalize that specific needs?
Other than some collaboration and some extra hours, they did talk for quite a bit on a food council, something that would band all of these organizations together so that we can collaborate and share our resources, share our volunteers, make sure that we're hitting the population that is most in need, and not necessarily anything that is something that would represent everyone involved in this. So council sounds a little bit formal, but something that would keep this moving forward, and so that we can continue to improve on focusing on the food insecurity that we have in our community.
So if someone is interested in getting, involved in that council or committee, who would they need to contact?
Sure. If anybody is welcome to call, and I can be sure to get them hooked up with the right people or give them that video if they're interested, they can call the health department at 812-882-8700 and just ask for Susan.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Susan. This was all very important information, and I appreciate hearing about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Again, if you have any questions, you can contact the Knox County Health Department at 812-882-8700. Well, joining in the effort to educate our area about food choices and healthy eating, the Knox County Community Learning Kitchen is focusing on making nutrition fun.
So I'm the coordinator of the Knox County Community Learning Kitchen, and kind of like a do everything. I run the social media, I organize the events, I actually do the demonstrations. So that's my primary role there.
Was it your turn? Yep, we had made our way to there. Yep, all right.
Oh, we've had so many amazing collaborations. We love to collaborate with Vincennes PBS. We've done, story times and summer reading programs with you guys. We also provide a meal at the teen center once a week. We call it Hot Meal Monday, and we also do cooking classes there too for the teens. And we've been able to work with all kinds of organizations and do live demos, presentations about health and nutrition. And we love going to the farmers market, teaching people how to use the local produce right here in our community, how they can use it in simple recipes at home. We provide online resources and cooking videos and things like that. We're just trying to provide as much information and opportunities for people to learn in person how to cook and utilize food in a nutritious way.
Healthy snacks all week long, so that when you say, Mommy, I'm hungry.
We've been able to do demos and teach a range of ages, but we find with the youth, they are just so much more engaged and excited about learning how to cook foods, what foods are good for them, and we feel like if we can really get this into the kids' minds at an early age, then they're going to start holding their adults accountable too when they're going grocery shopping. Like, hey, Mom, we probably shouldn't eat that. Let's go find some fresher produce, some whole foods. So that's what we're really hoping for, and I think we're seeing that little by little as kids get more exposure to what is healthy food and, oh, I can cook food myself. It's really exciting to see them grow and learn those new skills.
Hold on just a second.
So many inexpensive items out there that are very nutritious, dense, and so we're focusing on meeting people where they're at. We know that prices of groceries are ridiculous right now, and so we're trying to focus on those things that are affordable, easy access to, and really filling that gap of how to use and cook those foods that maybe people would glance over normally in the supermarket because they don't know how to cook it. And so if we can teach people how to cook, rice or beans or, prepare veggies, then we're hoping that then they'll make that choice to buy those items and cook those more nutrient-dense foods for their families.
Awesome.
Our ultimate goal, obviously, is to raise a generation that is focused on health and wellness, and that is a priority to them so that they can have a better quality of life and increase the quality of life of our whole community.
To see a list of demonstrations that the Knox County Community Learning Kitchen has planned for the summer, visit a link on our website. Invasive plants or trees like the Bradford Pear might be a beautiful sight in the spring, but Dean of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics, Kurt Kaufman, is here to tell us how they are causing more harm than good. Thanks for joining me today, Kurt.
It's great to be here, Allison.
So for those watching, first of all, just kind of go over what is an invasive plant.
Okay. An invasive plant or any invasive species is something that is not native to the area and then typically lacks any kind of control in nature. So there's nothing hunting it, eating it, consuming it. There are no insects that chew on the leaves, and then they tend to reproduce really, really well, and so they can come into an area and populate very quickly and often outcompete native plants.
Okay, how does this affect our local area?
Okay, there's a lot of ways. Unfortunately, a lot of invasive plants originated because we brought them here. Starting back with multiflora rose, which my dad as a farmer was told, oh, this will be a great natural fence. And or with honeysuckle plants that they thought would feed wildlife, but they're actually the equivalent of M&Ms in terms of nutrition. and so we planted them thinking they were good, and then when we didn't understand that, then things that they start doing is some of them like Asian honeysuckle secrete chemicals from their roots into the soil that keep other seeds from germinating. And so if you have honeysuckle in your forest and it looks pretty, pretty flowers, pretty berries, but then you'll notice there are no new trees sprouting in your woods. Once your older trees die out, all you'll have is a bunch of 15-foot honeysuckle just completely, taking over your forest. And so if you grow timber or you just like to have a forest, if you have a small woodlot, it can take it over. Winter creeper is another example of a landscaping plant that was like a ground cover. And you go into any of our parks here in Knox County, and you'll see it all over it covers everything. It lives up to its name. It not only covers the ground, though, it grows up trees and can harm trees as well. But it literally covers the ground. If you like spring wildflowers, you won't see them anymore. Because it literally just completely invades and keeps other plants from growing. Bradford pears are very pretty when they flower. However, they smell pretty bad. So if you walk around them, they're not nice. However, their fruit gets carried by birds, and the seeds are dropped into woods, and they take over a woodlot very much like the honeysuckle does, where they secrete chemicals in the soil that will keep other trees from growing, and then they're also dangerous from just a landowner perspective, is that they're very brittle trees, and so they break really easily. So if there's a windstorm or some other storm and you're under that tree, you could be injured very quickly. They split and so are very harmful from a physical standpoint as well.
You mentioned your dad being a farmer. What kind of effect does it have on our agriculture and our food supply that we produce here?
Sure. It's estimated, estimated that the United States Department of Agriculture, that we spend over $26 billion a year to combat invasives, from growing in the fields and just spraying them so you can then plant your crop, to again, if you're growing timber, which is a crop for some people, it's very hard to start the next generation of plants when these invasives are in there. They also can choke up, they can grow into ditches, drainage ditches. So drainage boards spend a lot of money just spraying these invasives Like kudzu, which is now in Knox County, which was thought it would control erosion. It doesn't control erosion, but it will cover your barn. And so again, billions of dollars are being spent. It's estimated in the last 50 years globally, we've spent over $1.3 trillion battling invasive species.
Yeah, that's a huge industry then. What are the long-term risks?
Well, there are, from a forest perspective, you lose your forests. Indiana has some beautiful forests, and actually, very personally, part of my parents' farmland, included about 100 acres of woods. It's now an Indiana nature preserve. And it was, along the Whitewater River in eastern Indiana. 10 years ago, there was no honeysuckle, there was no autumn olive, there was no multiflora rose. Now it's everywhere. And so again, this area that was set aside for its unique forest characteristics, as well as being protecting a watershed. Very soon, we're not going to see the reproduction of those trees, and it's getting harder and harder just to hike in there. So that's one concern. Some plants are poisonous, and so if you graze livestock, and you have to be very aware of what's in your pasture. And some of these invasive plants, like garlic mustard, are toxic to animals and to people, and so there's the health risk as well.
Are there any efforts going on locally, groups that are trying to combat this? I've seen a lot of Bradford Pears on campus and
Sure.
all around Vincennes.
Knox County has actually been a leader in terms of really trying to address the invasive issue. The Knox County Soil and Water Conservation District was the first district to actually hire a full-time employee to work with landowners to combat invasives. And then out of that, a nonprofit was formed called the Knox County CISMA, which stands for Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. That's a mouthful. And it's a group of volunteers that take their own time and their own effort to remove invasives, mainly from our public lands. So if you might be in Wabash Trails Park or up at Hillcrest Park, Fox Ridge, and you'll see this wonderful group of volunteers, removing invasives. And then we have some landowners that have come to me as dean and said, what can we do? We know, VU has planted a lot of Bradford pears in the past, and there's currently an ordinance that keeps us from that you cannot sell Bradford pears and about 70 other invasive species in the county, and that's been a great first step. But the Bradford pears were already here. Mm-hmm. A local farmer, Ray McCormick, actually approached VU and said he would remove about 20 pear trees at his own cost and then plant natives. And so we're working with him where we're going to be identifying which trees to remove. I mean, there's over 100 Bradford pears, so removing 20 is a good first step. If there's some people that love those white flowers, there'll still be some of those on campus. But we know, we just know to be a good neighbor, it's something we should do. And so by fall, we should have at least 20 native trees planted. We're looking at planting with trees that flower, like redbuds and dogwoods. Really beautiful, trees in their own right that are native. We also are excited. We own a nature preserve in just across the river called Robeson Hills, and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources helps manage it for us. And they have spent well over $50,000 in the last 3 years to try to remove invasive species, from hiring someone with a grinder, which is this really cool machine that literally grinds up mature trees. So it's grinding up the autumn olive and the multiflora rose, and as well, and then reseeding it. We have part of Robeson as a prairie, so we reseeded that as a prairie. Where the invasives were coming in, but then they have today they're spraying $15,000 worth of invasives on the southern part of Robeson Hills, south of US 50. So So we have some great partners that are helping VU be a good steward of the resources that we have.
Okay, well, I mean, this is all great information, stuff that I didn't know but ahead of time, so I hope some of our viewers can glean some of that. Where is a list, if people are looking for a list of invasive species, where can they go to find that?
I would say the easiest way would be to contact the county commissioners, because it's one of their ordinances, or the Knox County Soil and Water Conservation District would also have that information as well. And they have someone who is an invasive specialist that can definitely talk to them about what they can do and how they can better serve. And also, the CISMA group sells native plants for landscaping. And so at the rendezvous, as well as at our farmers markets, you'll find them selling native plants that you can replace maybe if you found you have some burning bush or some invasives, they'll tell you what kind of plants would work well to replace them.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kurt. I've certainly learned a lot, and this was a lot of very useful information.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Well, we are happy to once again be hosting our student broadcasting camp here at Vincennes University. Here's a quick look at last year's camp.
Another program like this. Any of you done an audio program? Okay, well, this program instead is pretty simple actually. Once you get this opened up,
my favorite part of camp so far has been recording the podcast and radio session.
I just liked holding the big camera and messing around with the video clips.
My favorite part about camp is recording over at the new health building.
My favorite thing about this broadcasting camp is learning stuff behind the scenes and what goes on.
My favorite thing about this camp so far was making a commercial.
My favorite part has been editing with it. I really like the camera part, even though I wish my camera movement wasn't so stuttery sometimes.
My favorite thing about broadcasting camp so far has been recording the commercial, because I was able to put more energy and express more than I was reading the script.
My favorite thing so far has been shooting footage.
My favorite part of broadcasting camp was probably the recording the construction site.
I liked the radio ad and the podcast part.
My favorite part of a broadcasting camp, find out how they make those TV shows and stuff. It's pretty neat.
To register for this camp, visit our website. And that's all for this edition of First City Focus. For everyone here at Vincennes PBS, I'm Allison Bowers. Join us again next week.
First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence, promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.